of 2026 of the Environmental Services Committee. First on the agenda is apologies. I've had an apology from Councillor Stephen Donnelly. It's a bit echoey here, that sound. Is anybody else got apologies? Councillor Brown?
Just to say that Councillor Coyle will be a few minutes late coming online, and Councillor Little will be a few minutes late as well.
Yeah, Councillor Coyle's online. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McLaughlin should be online. If not,
He is, yes.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Robinson?
Councillor Hawkes will be online too.
She's online too, yeah. Thank you. Okay, just to let you know, we've signed the minutes and confidential minutes of the previous meeting on the 3rd of December. Is there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, so we'll go on to the first item. Item 4, it's a report of consideration. Over to John.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is the monthly Estates Matters report. So a number of matters for decision and a number of matters just for information. The first of those for decision is in relation to Carrickmore Public Convenience. As members may recall, that the council approved a 12-month pilot in October 2024 for the public conveniences facilities in Carrickmore to be closed and instead to be provided through the patrician by Mid-Ulster Community and Arts Trust. That pilot was originally due to finish on the 31st of December, but there were some delays in getting the pilot commenced. It didn't commence until the middle of April, so we've been in touch with MUCAT and they've indicated that they would be keen to see it run for the full 12 months. So on that basis, recommended that we would extend the pilot through to the 30th of April, and we will then bring a full report back. I mean, there has been ongoing engagement with MUCAT, and it all appears to be going very well from the group's point of view. But we will bring our report on the pilot back to committee in due course. The next matter then for decision is in respect of electric vehicle charging points. So in September of last year, Council approved entering into a concession agreement and a 15-year licence agreement with Weave, an EV charge point operator, for the installation of charge points at 10 locations across the district. We've been again working with Weave, and officers have been working with Weave regarding the rollout of the programme, and it's necessary for us to enter into well leave agreements with NIE to enable the installation of underground cabling. So again, recommend that the necessary well leave agreements are entered into and council receive annual payments as per standard well leave payment schedule. Request for the use of council property members, 2.31 Omagh Harriers has requested permission to use Lissanelli Avenue car park to facilitate the annual Omagh Half Marathon and Fun Run on Sunday the 29th of March, and then you'll also see at 2.4 a number of requests for retrospective approval for the use of council property. And members, I appreciate that I've spoken to the chair about this. It's slightly unusual that we had a contact this afternoon from one of the local churches in Omagh. As you'll have heard discussed last night, Father Hassan passed away a couple of days ago, and his funeral is taking place on, his funeral mass takes place on Friday the 16th of January, so Friday of this week. The church has contacted us to request access to Church Street off-street car park, which is part of the council estate, to facilitate the family, mourners and concelebrants and visiting clergy who will be attending. So it's recommended that we would close the off-street car park for public use from 6 p.m. on the Thursday evening through until I think it's 3 o'clock on the Friday afternoon after the funeral mass has finished. So I appreciate members, unusual that's not included in the report, but the request has only come in this afternoon. And then moving on to section 3 of the report, a number of matters just for information. Those relate again to the use of council property. So the first was CKS Community Centre. N2 held a committee meeting on the 6th of December. On the 12th of December, the Manifest Church held a praise event at the pavement area of Market Street in Omagh, and SDLP held a party meeting in Castle Park Leisure Centre on the 16th of December, and then a number of documents for sealing that are noted. And again, these are routine documents as performance deeds for the continued operation of Drumee landfill, or continued provision, I should say, not operation, the provision for Drumee landfill site, and in respect of Glassmulla landfill sites, and say those are requirements from NIEA. So members, the recommendations are as set out at 9.1 in the report, that approve those matters lead at 9.1, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and at point 3 I said we'll also include the use of Church Street off-street car park on the 16th of January 2026, and then at 9.2 that the council notes the matters around the use of council venues and the sealing of documents.
Okay, thank you, John. So, if everybody's happy, any comments? If not, can I get a proposer and seconder? Councillor McColgan, Councillor McArdle, thank you. Thanks very much. So we'll move on to the next. 4.2 is the report on NIE Network Development Plan consultation. Back over to you, John. Thank you.
Pardon me. Thank you, Chair. So, members, it was just at the outset to note that council powers were delegated to Environmental Services at the council meeting last night for the consideration of this report, and that's simply because of the consultation closing date will be before the next council meeting. So the note there in the report, this is a draft response to NIE's Network Development Plan consultation. The consultation opened in November and closes on 17th of January this year. So the NDP consultation outlines network interventions that NIE believe will release additional capacity across their primary network over the next 10 years. And it identifies the committed interventions under RP7 price control period, which runs to 2031, and then the forecast interventions in the next price control period, RP8, which is yet to be approved. As noted within the report, effective electricity grid planning is a critical enabler for successful and sustainable development, whether that's spatial, economic, environmental and community. And in that context, it's also a matter of interest for district councils in the delivery of their functions and the sustainable development of council areas. The responsibility for electricity infrastructure, be that planning, development, delivery, regulation, rests variously with a number of network operators in central government, such as Department for the Economy, Utility Regulator, System Operator, and also NIE Networks. But the impact of those grid planning decisions have direct and long-term implications for residents and district councils, not least in terms of the council's own strategic objectives. The report also then sets out how electrification and sustainable generation of electricity is a key means to help organisations meet climate change obligations and manage long-term costs. And grid and network limitations restrict organisations, not just the council, but community groups and businesses. It restricts them in their ability to decarbonise, reduce emissions and improve their energy efficiency. So electricity infrastructure decisions therefore directly impact onto the council's own asset management and service delivery. And in rural council areas in particular, effective and equitable grid planning can make a key contribution to addressing inequality of access to goods and services, promoting regional balance and investment decisions that aren't based solely on immediate demand that might then disadvantage rural communities. So the key points have been noted within the draft response, members, that's set out at Appendix 1. I won't go through the draft response, and the paper, a link to the papers is also included in the report. So the recommendation then is that the contents of this report, but also considers and approves that Appendix 1 is submitted as the Council's response to the consultation in advance of the closing date on the 17th of January.
Thank you, John. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was looking at this network development plan and I didn't actually see any planned projects or investments in our council area to upgrade the network. Is that information available, or or is it even decided yet if there will be interventions in our area over the next 2 price levels? Just, we're responding to consultation here, but like, it's hard to know what really their plan is, to be honest, like in terms of what are they doing in this area. Thank you.
John?
Okay, if members of I'll come back to you on the specifics for provision within the district. But as my understanding of the consultation is setting out the approach and the tools that they will use in modelling the network over the course of the next 10 years, and in particular in looking at the existing infrastructure, but looking at wider business priorities, but also looking at anticipated developments, see that in terms of EV charging, in terms of residential development, in terms of business development, economic development. So it's the principles rather than necessarily identifying specific projects. I think the consultation documents do include a number of case studies where they have applied these principles. I think one of them just is 5 Mile Town, and I know certainly that's one that we've referenced within the report, that we feel that actually there's more could be done with these case studies, and would like to see more discussion of these, particularly through officer technical groups that are led by NIE and with other stakeholders to fully understand the implications of some of their grid planning decisions.
Okay, yeah, you're happy to propose. Thanks, Dermot. And a seconder? Can I get seconder? Councillor Crawford, thank you. Okay, that's great. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the report on the street naming and numbering dual language paper. I presume that everybody's read the paper. There's 9 roads and 7 have met the criteria. So unless anybody has any comments, or can we go straight to first proposing secretary? Councillor Maguire.
Margaret, currently happy to propose the recommendations. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. And Councillor Little, you happen to second? Thank you very much. Okay, and the next one is, it's a report. Sorry, Councillor Robinson.
We can do that.
Sorry, yes, I should have said, my apologies. So that is with, I presume, the dissent of the DUP and the UUP. Is that noted? Okay, my apologies for that.
Right, Chair, I'd like to raise something.
Okay, John?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Thank you for noting our normal replies. I'm wondering if the officers could perhaps bring forward a report based around this policy and the fact that we may be reviewing it. I'm wondering if and how and when residual discretion and protection and mitigations as appropriate have been applied to this policy, and how it would be applied if it hasn't been. So I'm wondering if that's possible.
John, do you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I suppose residual discretions have never been applied in the chamber in relation to this policy. I suppose it would be up to members to decide the residual discretion. I don't know what a report would do, Chair, in relation to providing any further information. The residual discretion is included in the policy in order to give members the ability to say, well, if, say, a street met the 15% condition, but members decided because of some residual reason not to apply that criteria in the case in individual instances, and that is solely up to members here in the chamber.
Councillor McCloughy, are you happy with that answer?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it gives us a bit of insight. I was just wondering how that actually worked, as it was key to the decision whenever we had called this in. That's the barrister had said that was key to this policy. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so that's proposed and seconded. On to the next report, which is the report on the local authority collected municipal waste management statistics annual report. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a mouthful with a paper title. Apologies. So, members, this is it's a regular report on the official statistics published by DAERA. You'll recall that you get the provisional statistics on a quarterly basis, and then once those provisional quarterly statistics have been validated by DAERA and by NISRA, then they will produce a validated or an official statistics report for the previous financial year. So this is the final published report for the year 24-25. So 1st of April 2024 ending 31st of March 2025. The report sets out in section 2 some of the key issues, setting out the tonnages of waste collected by all councils within the full body of the report, but specifically then for Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, noting, as it does in the report, 57,134 tonnes of waste collected in 24-25, which was a 1.1% increase in the previous year, noting that there's been an increase of local authority collected waste tonnage since 2018-19. There was a particular high point in the period 2020 through to 2022 as a result of COVID. Also noting then within the report that 45.9% of the waste collected within the district sent for reuse, dry recycling and composting, which is slightly below the NI average, albeit it's improving on the performance in the previous year, 23-24. And similarly noting that the percentage of energy recovery has also increased. Landfill waste decreased significantly following the completion of the new waste transfer station at Dromee in November 2024, and that's enabled council to cease active landfilling at that site. Works to cap the closed landfill site are progressing and are expected to complete in the next financial year. 9 councils recorded a decrease in household landfill waste last year, with Fermanagh recording the largest decrease of just under 16%. I've noted there that just under 46% of waste is sent for reuse, recycling and composting, and say that's an increase of 1.5% on the previous year. The report also then within the body sets out some comparative statistics across the other councils in terms of total waste arisings, population, average household waste arisings, number of houses, etc. Pardon me. And then, so in summary, then the overall data shows a small increase in local authority collected waste in 2024-2025 compared to the previous year, and that's slightly above the rolling 6-year average. So, members, the recommendation is set out in the report that you, section 8, that you note the contents of this report and the attached appendices.
Thank you, John. And Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to propose the recommendations there. I just have a couple of questions. I see that the amount of waste that was recycled or sent for, recycling has increased there to 45.9%. But what is our target? What are we trying to reach with that? And what are the sort of steps that we need to take to ensure that we reach that? And then the second question then on the landfill, it's come down to 24.5%. What's the target on that? And because now we've got the landfill is now closing, is that going to decrease further next year? And where is that going? Thank you.
Okay, John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So Northern Ireland has a target, or had a target, still has a target to recycle at least 50% of its waste across the whole of Northern Ireland, and as noted within the report, Northern Ireland has been achieving that. So it's the councils, our ambition certainly in the short term will be to get up to that Northern Ireland average, so at least to 50%. Beyond that, Northern Ireland has, as part of the EU Circular Economy package, has longer term targets to see that will see the recycled waste going up to 60% by 2030 and 65% by 2035. There are a number of measures in the pipeline, if you can put it that way. One's obviously the extended producer responsibility has now been implemented, and funding is now starting to come back to councils to enable improvements around those recycling rates, particularly in relation to waste packaging. And there are a number of interventions this council has agreed to implement, particularly to increase composting, which is part of that overall recycling rate, and that will see the introduction of the large brown bins across all of the district again later in the next financial year in 26-27. So that's one change that you will see and members will see on the ground over the course of the next 12 months. There's also further changes anticipated around the deposit return scheme, which is set to come in a couple of years' time. That's again at a Northern Ireland level rather than specifically within Fermanagh and Omagh, but that's tended to contribute to the overall recycling performance within Northern Ireland. So the two particular targets around recycling. I suppose the final thing maybe I'll just say about that is you'll note that there's a piece of correspondence that will come to shortly, which was around a heads up, if you can say, around the DAERA's publication of a new waste strategy for Northern Ireland. So it's expected that the detail of that will also set out the department's ambition for recycling and waste management over the course of the next 10 years when that's published. The second question you'd asked was around landfill, and you quite rightly noted, yes, it's come down to say it's 12.6%, if I remember the figure. That would be expected to decline. That was the percentage for the whole of that financial year 24-25. The landfill only closed at the end of Q3. So really the reductions that you see manifest for 24-25 reflect the reduction in Q4 essentially. We have continued to see that reduction in landfill waste then ever since then. So from the start of 25-26 and each of the quarterly reports, the landfill has again continued to come down. I'm going to say, actually, I'll need to check back. It'll have been in some of our previous reports, but I think that's where the 12.6% had come down to. And the target for Northern Ireland would be to get to below 10% of waste going to landfill, and that's through improved recovery processes. And the secondary recovering whenever residual waste is collected by council contractors sent to sorting facilities, and they can take out particularly things like hard plastics and glass that have been mistakenly put into residual bins.
Okay, thanks, John. Councillor Gannon.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the update. John, there, I'm looking at the composting. They're obviously up just over 1% there, which is positive. And I note that 60% of all our waste is biodegradable, which appears from, obviously, by tonnage, it's not as much as other areas, but by percentage, I think that's the highest percentage of any council. So there's work to be done there as well. And then, obviously, the move to the large brown bins for everyone is very welcome that you've mentioned there, John. And I was thinking just when I was looking at this report the other day about, obviously we do have the brown caddies and some have been missed, and I know I can't remember whether it's 1% or 0.1% of bins are missed annually. So 99.9% are collected, or 99%, I can't remember which it is, but regardless of which it is, that's in a year, even if it's 0.1, that's thousands of people's waste not collected, given that obviously households and whatnot. And I'm just curious if we've ever done anything looking at the impacts of this, of missing these. So how does that impact the tonnage when we miss a route? Has that, and it may seem like small amounts. And I'd also be curious, because a big thing that people have said to me is that, because it tends to be the same routes quite often impacted, that they've just lost faith in it and they just don't use it anymore. I'd be interested in seeing if, because obviously we measure the tonnage, maybe this is getting very granular, but has there been any decrease in those routes that have experienced occasions or frequent occasions where they, and I'm talking about multiple occasions, not a one-off, where they have been missed? I think that would be really interesting to see the impact of that, because we do hear it in the chamber a lot about waste and people not, and people being fed up of it, and people, as I've said, people said to me that they don't do it anymore. It'd be interesting to see if the numbers actually back that up and if the numbers support that. Now, I will say that obviously moving to the large brown bins in the next 12 months, which you said will make that moot point eventually. So I'm not going to ask you to go do necessarily a report on this at this stage. I'm just curious as if it's something that we've looked at all at this stage, Chair. I'm happy to second as well.
Thank you, Councillor. John?
Pardon me. Sorry. As probably the answer to the member's question is it's the answer to the first is tied up with the answer to the last. You'd highlighted the percentage of biodegradable waste that was being collected within the residual bins. And I think certainly the reflection at officers is that is an indication that a lot of the food waste that isn't making us, or that either can't be accommodated in the smaller food waste caddies, or where food waste caddies aren't being used, that households have continued to then put food waste into the residual bin, and say that is reflected in the percentage of biodegradable waste that would previously have been going to landfill. So we would expect to see, when the large brown bins are introduced across the whole district, we would then expect to see you will have that increased capacity where households previously only had a small food caddy, that they will now have a large 240 litre bin. So there will be certainly no reason for people to be putting food waste in the residual bins. There will be ample capacity, additional capacity within each of those households. That's not to say we don't underestimate that it will be extremely important that the rollout of the brown bins will also be accompanied by a comprehensive programme of communications to residents, not just around letting them know when they're getting the bins, when their collections are, but reminding them about how it should be bagged, what they should be putting into, things like the use of the biodegradable, compostable liners when you're putting food waste in. So we would expect to see an improvement in or a reduction in the biodegradable residual waste, but that then, because we'll be capturing that separately as commingled organic waste, that will then also increase the tonnage and the percentage of waste that's going to composting. That increased composting will contribute to an overall improvement in our recycling performance. And the middle question is, were we observing any impact in the tonnages where there had been missed bins? And I suppose I would probably reference back to the table at section 2.1 of the report, where it shows that there hasn't, we are continuing to collect more waste. So we're not seeing anything within the statistics to indicate that the council is collecting less waste overall. And that also, bear in mind, that also takes into account waste that's coming in through our household recycling centres. And certainly when we've looked previously at the recycling performance of our household recycling centres, that's why we continue to invest in those. We see some of those achieving recycling of up to, I think it's 78%, and certainly like an average of 60, it's the low 60s is the average. So extremely high rates of recycling through the household recycling centres. But answer your question, no statistical evidence from what we can see in terms of a decrease in waste collected linked to missed bins.
Okay, thank you, John. Councillor Brough.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John, for your report. Just a wee quick question in relation to recycling. Has the council ever thought about the use of reverse vending machines? It's something that I know they do have in certain areas in the south of Ireland, and it does help with lessen the amount of waste that goes to landfill, and it's an incentive too for people to bring along like the glass bottles or plastic bottles, and then they get a monetary value for doing that, and it might help alleviate the amount of waste dumped along roadsides as well. Thank you, John.
The short answer would be yes, but if the chair, if you let me, I'll elaborate slightly. Reverse vent machines in the south of Ireland were brought in as part of the implementation of the deposit return scheme. It's been operational now. I think it's 2 years at this stage, or just if not quite two, just shy of 2 years. So I mentioned about DRS will be implemented in England. Northern Ireland, and I think it's Scotland. I think Wales are looking at a slightly different model, but that's due to come in 2028. I think is the date, if I'm correct in that. But there are definitive plans, and that is what the department, that's what the devolved legislations are working towards, is the implementation of DRS. Reverse vent machines are part of that solution. And I know there are discussions going on about what that looks like and where they'll be rolled out. I think one of the success or one of the aspects of success of the scheme in the south, but not just in the south, across the rest of Europe, is it's the wide availability. So if you go into any of your local convenience stores, if you go to lots of the bigger, certainly the bigger forecourts, you go to your supermarkets, the first thing that people will see will be the reverse vent machine, and it becomes it's a positive behaviour change. It's a habitual thing that when you're going to do the shop, you have the appropriate bottles or tins with you, and you bring them back and you get credit, and people do see an economic benefit and become much more invested in their positive recycling behaviours. I suppose just one thing, because you mentioned about absolutely plastic bottles are part of DRS in the south, and expected to be part. It will be part of DRS in Northern Ireland. Aluminium cans, tins, and what have you will be part of it. You mentioned glass. Glass is not part of DRS, but that may be something that's addressed through the proposals within the waste management strategy when they're published.
Okay, thank you, John. Right, that's proposed and seconded. We move on to, there's a couple of pieces of correspondence. The first one is from the Department of Economy, and I'm back over to you, John.
Chair, really, it's just for noting, members. The Minister has published a mid-term review of the Northern Ireland Executive's energy strategy, and said the copy of the document was uploaded to Decision Time with your papers, and there's a link, but it's really just included here for information, given the work of the Council in terms of net zero and climate action and sustainable development.
Thank you. And so it's just a note then, can I get a proposer? Councillor Maguire, seconder. Councillor Robinson, thank you. And the second piece of correspondence is from Deirdre. Over again to you, John.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. And sorry, members, I know I referenced this in remarks a minute ago. You'll recall that, our members will recall that we had our own council and all the other 10 councils had responded to a DARE consultation in 2024 called Rethinking Our Resources. So last week there had been a heads up from the department that the Minister intended to publish a new waste management strategy in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Just by way of update to that, just as I was coming into the meeting this evening, got an email in just to say that the document will now be published. The consultation will commence on tomorrow, the 15th of January, and run to Wednesday, the 8th of April. So we will, of course, be bringing a full report on the draft consultation back to Environment and Services for your consideration in due course in advance of the closing date.
Thanks, John. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to propose the open of that correspondence. And I suppose just a question, does the department engage with our council in particular, when it comes to drafting these strategies, or is it a case, do you know any idea at all what's coming tomorrow, or is it a case that we're just told what the strategy is and we have to live with it? or do we have any input into actually creating the strategy as well? Thank you.
John?
Yeah, there was the department had published a discussion document called Rethinking Our Resources in 2024, which set out some of their thinking around how those recycling targets that I alluded to earlier on, circular economy package and so forth, could be achieved. So all of the councils would have responded to that. There would have been a series of workshops with the likes of, you'll see there's a reference there to the Government Waste Working Group. There's also the Council Waste Forum, and there would have been a range of other stakeholder events at that time. There would be an ongoing dialogue. Like anything else, I would say that there's always room for that to be strengthened in terms of that engagement. But I suppose to give the department their due, yes, there is engagement with councils. We may not always think the same thing as the department, but certainly, we're mindful of the recycling, about sustainability, but also about the needs of residents and businesses and communities across our district as well.
Okay, thank you, John. And I need a seconder, please. Councillor Elliott. Okay. Right. I don't have any notification of AOB. So, and there is no confidentiality items tonight. So that concludes the meeting for this evening. So thank you very much, everybody, and safe home. And thank you, everybody online. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.